Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. His name is Mitch. He is the founder of RevSignals, where he helps sales teams uncover the hidden behavioral patterns that separate top performance from the rest of the sales floor. His work sits at the intersection of sales psychology, call analysis, coaching, systems, and AI, helping founders and sales leaders see why a few reps consistently outperform the team even when everyone is supposedly using the same script, same process, and the same offer. Across dozens of sales environments, Mitch has reverse engineered the deeper drivers behind rep performance, how buyer decisions are actually influenced, why playbooks often fail in the real world, and why systems create more lift across a team without forcing everyone into the same personality of style. He has built sales methods, coaches, and analyzed hundreds of reps and helped organizations improve close rates, ramp quality, offer fit, and coaching clarity by designing the layer beneath the script. If you lead a sales team and feel like your top reps are winning in ways your current system cannot fully explain, Mitch brings a fresh lens of diagnosing what is really happening and what to do about it. What's going on, Mitch? How's it going, man?
Good. How are you, Caesar?
I'm doing good, man. So I love you have a lot of things going on. So before we dive into that, though, I want to for our listeners and viewers to know more about you. Where are you originally from, and how was your upbringing?
Oh, that's a great question, man. So I'm originally from New York, and I was raised by parents from what used to be the Soviet Union,
Mm,
right? But even more specifically, Ukraine. And they immigrated to the US in the early 90s, shortly after, the fall of communism and everything like that. And for the record, they were never communists, right?
right. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Yep. And the upbringing was good. I think as a child, I, definitely received a lot of love. And my childhood was a little bit different from everyone else because I took particular favor to singing and
Mm,
acting, dancing, and the performing arts, right? So I'm
okay.
used to being on stages and performing from a very, very young age, actually. So that's probably not something that you hear very often from people about their upbringing.
No, no, definitely. So let me ask you this: Did you ever try to pursue anything in the performing arts, or it was more just in school, just kind of growing up, and during, yeah, I guess, middle school, high school, elementary?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I definitely wanted to pursue it, but eventually I decided to go a different route because I didn't want to be, on stage my whole life and be famous and everything like that. But funny enough, it's like the way that my career is going right now, I might still somehow end up on stage and famous just given just given what I preach about sales and sales teams and communication, right? So
Yeah,
it might come full
full
circle.
circle for sure.
And I'll tell you the funniest thing, man, right? Like when we talk about overcoming obstacles and barriers and everything like that, I used to have a pretty big speech impediment when I was younger.
Mm,
I would stutter a lot. I went to speech therapy and speech pathology to, kind of alleviate it a little bit. And, I can't say that I've completely gotten rid of it, but it obviously hasn't stopped me from performing when I was young and from being a eight-figure closer as an adult. So.
yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this: like, obviously, you kind of enjoyed that growing up, and at which point, or kind of going into your early years right after high school or college, if you went to college, right? Like, obviously we're in this society, right? That at the end of the day is, go to school, get a good education, come out of that, and then hope that you find a good job and retire and have the shiny object, right? And we know that, well, that might work for some, more so now in today's era, there's a lot more things you can do. How was it for you? Was it you following that path, and then at one point you kind of, found out and or figure out, what, this is not for me, or did you automatically kind of dove into being an entrepreneur?
I mean, the whole go to a good school, get a good job, retire at 65, like that was the plan,
Hmm.
right? Like that was very much the plan. That's what I thought I was going to do. I went to university at NYU. I went to the undergrad business school there. I thought I was going to study finance and become a, investment banker or something along those lines.
Hmm.
But took one intro to finance class and getting rejected from every finance internship that I possibly could have to actually have me go a little bit of a different direction because a buddy of mine from high school reached out to me and said he was starting a software development agency. And he's
Hmm.
like, you know what, Mitch, I feel like you'd be pretty good at sales and marketing. So want to just help me do sales and marketing for the agency? I said, sure, why not? And so that was my like first intro to to real entrepreneurship and starting and building a business.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, good. So, now that you kind of delved into that, like, let's talk about some, before we dive into like what you're able to do and you have helped build, right? Because
Yeah.
I think, I always believe of this is like you have to preach what you speak of, right? So, how for you, kind of getting into the sales space, there's many different forms, right? Like, what are some of the big lessons you've learned that obviously you're teaching now, and how you can kind of go from maybe doing mediocrity to actually making some good profits.
Yeah. Um, so lessons in sales or lessons in business? What are you
I'll say both of them actually. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, in sales, I mean, it's like sales isn't actually about selling, it's about listening, right? It's
Mm,
about listening and it's about serving. And so like I find that the more I listen, like really, really listen to what someone wants, the more likely they are to buy what I'm selling. The more I'm coming from a place of genuinely wanting to give them the best solution and the best path forward, the more likely they are to buy. So that's a sales lesson that I think people whether they run a business or
hmm.
they, in the professional workforce, whatever it is, right? Like you're always selling in some kind of way. And those are principles that really help. And then as far as, you know, business lesson, it's like, things sound great in your head, right? Things sound great in your notes app on your laptop or, in your Google Docs. But like until they're actually out into the world, out on the market, getting tested live, these are all just theories that are unproven.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the company, RevSignals, right? How did that come about? What was the idea behind that? And then we can dive into the things you're doing with that, with that business.
Yeah, for sure. So RevSignals came about when I was actually working on a software product for my last company. My
Hmm.
last company was called Sales Agency AI, right? And what that was like a very heavily AI powered sales agency where we would go into teams and we would help them build their own sales teams and manage the sales teams and so on and so forth. And I was building a software that would basically review people's calls, right? And say exactly where they went wrong with script adherence, exactly where they went wrong with sales philosophy, and it would kind of serve as like the tool that sales managers would be so thankful for because now they don't have to review calls by themselves. But the problem that was happening when I was building that was I was realizing that for some reason it's so weird. The salespeople that would score lower in what the call review tool was grading and judging would still somehow end up closing more deals and making more money. Why
Hmm.
is that? Right. And so I started looking a little bit more deeply into it and I was like, I see what's happening. There is no AI tool, there's no amount of software, there's no virtual assistant or like person you could hire to like review calls for like did they say this line and or you know did they follow the script to actually be able to understand why deals are really being won, because it's not about script adherence, it is not
Hmm.
about following the medpic framework or NEPQ or gap selling, right? Like those are all tactics. Those are all ways to, put yourself in the best position to generate money. But again, unless you're listening to the prospect and unless you're showing up to the call in a way like you're ready to serve and you're out of your own head, then you are never going to be super, super, super successful with sales. And once I started to realize that, I started to work with teams on uncovering those truths, right? Because those are more value generating and more cash driving than any sort of script adherence or,
Hmm.
sales philosophy that they could follow.
Yeah. Well, one thing that comes to mind, like, with sales, right? And really anything, I think you're always selling an idea, whether it's your significant other, friends, family, kids, right? They're always selling you something, right? And one of the things that I've learned is that it really comes down to the communication or the way you communicate. So I want to kind of get that from, get a little bit from your perspective, whether or not
Yeah.
that goes into play, right? And essentially, there's, three ways we communicate, right? Our tonality, our physiology, and the words that we use. How much of that, if any of that, based on the things you're teaching and showing people, right, does that go into play in terms of how you communicate with, the other person?
Oh man, that's so important, right? But it can't be fake. It
Mm,
needs to be real because if it's fake, people will smell that on you. And sometimes they won't even know that they smell it on you. They'll just know that they're somehow turned off or that they don't trust you, right? But they won't really know why, but that is the reason why, right? So how do you actually make the physiology and the tonality real? Well, you have to become the person that is able to carry that sort of tonality and physiology. That's not easy. You got to
right.
meditate, you got to do breath work, you got to talk to your inner child, you got to take
Mm.
supplements, you got to get sun, you got to go to the gym. Like you have to do all of those things that then contribute to you being a more developed and dare I say optimized person. And then of course you're going to carry yourself better. Of course you're going to have better tonality, physiology, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
mentioned, all those things that you mentioned, it really comes down to working on yourself, right? So, with the things you teach and or you talked about, is there an element, right, of self-improvement or an element of the things you have to do to, again, even the idea of speaking to your inner child, right? The things we learn from the age of 0 to 7 are very important. And unless you work on those things, they're gonna follow you all the way through your adulthood, right? What is the level of, I guess, self-improvement, self-development, becoming that 1% better every day, as I would like to say, to be able to be successful at this, selling.
Oh, that's so important, man, because let me give you the best example. So let's say that you are on a sales call and then the client tells you that they need to think about it, or they tell you that it's too much money, or
Hmm.
they tell you that they got to talk to their wife. Well, if you're the person that needs to think about it when you're on a sales call, or if you're the guy that says that it's too much money, how can you expect your prospect to say anything else,
Mm.
right? So I could give you the script for handling their objection, but you can't own that script yourself unless you're the guy that doesn't need to think about it. Unless you're the guy that sees a high price tag and doesn't think, "Wow, that's too much money." Right? So there are certain beliefs that we have or certain behaviors that are holding us back when it comes to actually making sales. And so I always say like put the energy out into the universe that you want to receive back, right? And so
Okay.
that's one way to look at working on yourself in order to get better at sales.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of your most common clients? Like, what kind of sales are we talking about? Is it telesales? Is it event sales? Is it, knocking on door sales? Where does this work, and who are the ones that you work with the most?
Yeah, it's mostly sales over the phone and over
Okay,
Zoom, right?
got
So
you.
like a lot of the sales teams that I work with, they do literally video calls like this, right?
Yeah,
And it's, 30, 45, 60 minute long call where they understand the pain, understand the goal, and they prescribe the solution. And then ideally at the end of that call, the client moves forward,
yeah.
right?
Got you. Well, I've been in sales for a long time myself too, and I hear a lot of objections, right? And you mentioned some of them. You know what? Let me think about it. I got to talk to my wife, my husband, or all these different things. What are some of the major objections that you kind of see? And number one, number two, how do you handle those objections so that you can turn people around to coming back to the idea that the solution you have is the solution they need to be able to move forward?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of what the objection is, whether it's I got to talk to this person or that's too much money or I got to think about it, it's all the same objection in the end. And what I mean by that is that the initial objection that they give you is very rarely like the actual objection,
Mm,
right? But it takes being very, very patient, very careful, and slowing down with the prospect to understand that, right? So once they give you the objection, first you want to, like acknowledge that you understand them and that that's perfectly fine that they have the objection, that you're not here to like, convince them into doing something they don't want to do. That's the first step,
right.
right? From there, it's actually getting their permission to ask them questions around the objection so that you could get clarity on how to point them in the right direction from here, right? Now they've literally given you permission to handle their objection. And now it's a matter of understanding why what they're saying as their objection is an objection, right? Like getting clarity on what they even mean. Like, okay, so you're saying is, it's too much money as an example, comparing to what? Like, what exactly do you mean when you say that it's too much money, right? And the more you ask, the more you literally do discovery around their objections, the more clarity they'll give you. And then once you know like the underlying objection, now it's like, well, what would make that not an objection anymore? What would make you feel like that is not the case? How can I give you the trust? How can I give you the confidence that you'll actually get, insert whatever result they're hoping to get as a result of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll literally tell you how to sell them, and then from there, it's obviously easy, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah, that's a big one. It's too much money, and even I've experienced this in the past too, where a lot of times they're like, well, I just gotta save up, or I gotta come back to that later, right? Or I don't, I just, that's all my life savings. That's all I have right now. And while I do believe that this is something that can help me in my path, I don't know if the timing will be right for me to spend this much money, right? And so that's one thing that I also hear a lot. How would you handle something like that?
Yeah. Well, so what, like in terms of like a money objection?
Hmm.
Dude, it's the same way. It's like, all right, cool. Like I totally get it. I appreciate you sharing and being honest with me about your situation. Do you mind if I ask you some questions about that so that I can, recommend the best path forward?
Mm,
You say
yeah.
yes? Okay, cool. And so like when you say that it's on like a lot of money, is it that you don't feel like it's enough value for how much you're paying? Like, do you not feel like you're gonna get the result, or like what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, it's the
And
value. They'll probably say it's the value. Like, I don't know if this is worth that much money, right? This product, this service, whatever you're offering me.
interesting. Okay, like what has you feeling that way? I mean, like I did like walk you through it. I guess what was missing for you to feel like it's valuable?
Yeah. So A, B, and C got you.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
you kind
yeah.
of take it back to them, right? And say, well, tell me what it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because see, like a lot of people that do sales calls, like they're scared to confront the prospect like this because, we have this like primitive fear of confrontation. But when we realize that literally the worst that could happen is they just hang up. And so, right, like, okay, fine. So then they, like they're not gonna come and crawl across the computer screen and like punch you in the face, right?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
you're on Zoom, right? Like, so you're fine, right? Like you should be willing to take that risk because I would argue that you're doing the prospect a disservice by not helping them overcome their objections. That is, if you actually believe in the product that you're selling. That's
Right.
very important as well.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think that when you believe in the product that you're selling, you have the ethical obligation to sell it to the people and make it available to them. Because they need it. This goes in line with what I have here in my notes that you mentioned, and is most performance problems are deeper than tactics. When you understand how people think, decide, and respond under pressure, you can improve leadership, sales, and growth in a much more meaningful way, right? It kind of goes back to what you're saying. It's like listen to them, feel their stuff. But do you want to expand more on that?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to ask me something that like points to the piece of that you would want to learn more about?
Again, I would say probably the one of the things that I heard a lot is too much money. Which we talked about, right? It's too much money, and I don't see the value. One of the things that I hear a lot too right now is like, man, I can just let's just say I do real estate investing, right? So if I'm trying to sell something in how to become a real estate investor and get how to do wholesales, fix and flips, or any other kind of strategy, right? the most common thing that I hear is like, well, I can go to YouTube and learn from YouTube, right? Right. And I
Yeah.
don't know if the value of that is there, right?
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
can get that there. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could do that, why haven't you done it already?
Yeah, probably, there's, I've been looking at a lot of different videos and you're just kind of putting all the different pieces together, right? Not one video has all the answers that I need.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's really just a matter of preference here because, like, you could totally go to YouTube and try to piece together the info and try to make sense of it and do it yourself, and you might end up very successful. But what do you think has a higher chance of success? You doing that or you following a step-by-step action-driven program that hundreds of people have went through and gotten the results?
Well, I would say definitely the step-by-step program, right? I mean, it's there for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so do you still feel like there's no value in that?
No, there is. I don't know if the price tag. I still think the price tag is a little bit too much.
Okay. Comparing to what?
Yeah, I don't know. It just like look at the number. I'm like, man, this is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, do you feel like if you were to invest that much, then you would actually be able to get the result that you're after?
I personally, yeah, definitely think so.
Okay. So if you're confident that, if you invest whatever the amount is,
Hmm.
that you're actually going to get whatever 10x or 20x, like the amount back, like, would you not take that bet every single day of the week
Yeah,
for every
I
dollar
guess
you
I
put?
gotta trust myself more, right?
Yeah. Right. Right. But see, like you say something interesting, it's like you got to trust yourself more. Like I think it really comes back to you, right? Like, do you think that you can work this system and you can work this program to actually get the results? Because we have the system, we have the coaching, we've already done this for hundreds of people. Do you think that you can actually just follow the steps and be like those people, or do you think you're gonna, give up like halfway or catch, a shiny object syndrome or something like that? You tell me, because you'd
Yeah.
be saving time if you are the second type of person. Because then I'd rather honestly not
Tell
work
you.
with you. You
Yeah,
know?
we
Yeah,
don't need you kind of thing, right? Yeah, I
yeah,
love that. No, I love that, and I'm glad we're doing this because this is a good example to obviously the things you're teaching and showing people so that they can kind of go and learn more about what you do. Talk to me about your clients, the people that are your targeting, or the people that come to you, right? How do they connect with you in terms of finding you, and what kind of programs do you have for them?
yeah, absolutely. So, the the best clients that I really enjoy working with are clients where either they themselves are still doing sales calls, or maybe they have one or two reps that are like clearly outperforming everybody else. And they
Okay,
kind of got lucky with those reps where like they just so happen to like, like stumble upon one or two like superstars. But then when they've tried to scale their team or they tried like hiring, it's always a shot in the dark, right?
okay,
And maybe they have some kind of process in place. Maybe they have a script. Maybe they have, like some onboarding materials, but it's not actually converting into like consistent 100K per month each performers, right? Like
gotcha,
I say, if a salesperson is not bringing you in at least 100K per month each for your business, they shouldn't be on the team, right?
got it.
So what I do is I help businesses systematize the stuff that they're already doing that's already working that they're just too close to the operation to see, plus add in the stuff that historically has been working across other offers to be able to build a process where they could hire at scale, ramp at scale, and train and manage at scale without necessarily them having to take up too much time to do it, right? So
Gotcha.
that's like a client for me.
Yeah. So do you go in there and kind of like do a discovery, look at, like you said, look at what they have, what is working, peel back in the onion and just kind of come in and say, here's the different things that we have to change or modify or improve upon?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, here's the thing, it doesn't actually matter whether they run a one call close or a two call close or a
Hmm.
VSL funnel or an applicant. Like, none of those things actually matter because at the end of the day, people are people and
Yeah.
they make decisions in a very similar sort of way, depending on what sort of like avatar the prospect is. So it's more about really understanding number one, what are you or your top reps doing that is not documented? Number
Mm,
two, how are your prospects actually making decisions, right? And what is like the most efficient way to shorten their experience to get closer to a decision faster, right? So once we understand that, we can actually create a system that does that and actually screens for the right salespeople to help them scale that.
yeah. And when somebody comes and they start working with you, is there is it based on the client? How long you're gonna be working with them? What's your time frame, right? So from the time that I hire you, how does that work?
Yeah, man, I've had clients that I've worked with for 2 years,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So, right, like there's some clients that come in and they just need a little bit of tweaking and like a like a little bit of a fix. Maybe they already have the team and they already have all the processes in place, but maybe they have some people that are underperforming. I come in and I get those people performing and I give them the materials that then they can scale with. Other
Gotcha.
clients need a full-on sales team built in a very simple way to manage the team, and that's a little bit of a longer project because of course they're always going to want my help and my consulting to actually make sure that they keep scaling the team efficiently, keep
Yep.
ramping efficiently, and keep on managing, because a 1, 2, or 300K per month business runs their sales team very differently from a 600, 800, a million a month sort of business, right? There's
Right.
two completely different ways of doing it. So you're always going to need a little bit of a hand with kind of getting to the next level with your sales team.
I love that. I love that. Mitch, how can people connect with you, find out more about your services and everything you have to offer?
Yeah. So the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. It's just at Mitch Sapoff on Instagram. You could go to my website, revsignals.io. That is RevSignals.io.
Awesome. I love that. And let me ask you this. Obviously, I think to have the time to be able to do all of this, I believe, when we're talking about self-improvement, right? I believe that a lot of the entrepreneurs that I know, they actually have, like Tony Robbins will refer to them, rituals or things that they got to do on a day-to-day basis. Can we talk a little bit about the things you do to kind of get you up and going, ready for the day and make sure that you're like killing there every single day?
Yeah, man. So I don't have this crazy like 4 hour long morning routine or
Yeah.
anything like that, like red light therapy, whatever. Like I try to be pretty solid with the biohacking like stuff, but I
Mhm.
believe in the 20/80 principle, right? So what I'll do, man, is I'll try to get some sun early on in the day, right? Like so that I wake up, I feel good, like really good serotonin on my body. I love coffee. I love a good strong coffee, at least
Yeah.
4 shots minimum, you
Yeah.
know. I like getting some proteins, carbs, and fats in me pretty early. I used to like intermittently fast until 4 p.m. and it just like didn't really work that well for me. So yeah, and then definitely breath work, right? But like depending on how much work I have to do, I'll either do breath work at night or in the morning. Not
Gotcha.
always both. Not always both. I'm gonna be honest with you. Lots of water, that goes without saying. And then I get to work. And then in the middle of the day, I'll go for a walk. I'll I'll hit a strong workout in the gym, right? Like I'll move some weight. And yeah, and weirdly, man, it's like a lot of my best work actually comes in the second half of the day. Like,
Hmm.
kind of like after lunch, sometimes even after dinner time.
Yeah.
And I just hit like a flow state and I go until pretty late, but I never feel, not never, but I very rarely feel tired or drained. So
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is because I call this living your dream life, where I think many people gotta get to. And what I mean by that is that, at least for me, I don't see work as working. I see it as just life in general. I don't. To me, there's no difference between work, or I don't really believe in work and life balance. To me, is the same in one,
yeah,
because I'm working at the same time that I'm enjoying my life. I'm enjoying at the same time that I'm working, right? And so I
yeah,
think that's kind of like, in my opinion, is once you get to that level where you're like, hey, whatever I'm doing, I'm enjoying, right? It doesn't feel like work, right?
100%.
So no, that's huge. My last question for you is, for the people that are watching us and are listening to us, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing you can say to them so they can start overcoming this challenge?
Breathe.
Mm,
Breathe, bro. Breathe.
yeah,
Right? Because it's very, very easy to get caught up in, oh my God, like my situation sucks. Like, how am I gonna get out of this? Like, oh my God, like I'm stuck, right? But sometimes the best thing that they could do is just breathe, have fun,
yeah,
get some sun, right?
right.
And like I know that people might say, oh, I'm like, Mitch, it's easy for you to say because you're, on a balcony
At a
in Miami,
beautiful Miami Beach kind of area.
right? But dude, like I go through challenges on a daily fucking basis,
Yeah,
man. Right?
yeah,
I have blockers, I have constraints, I have bottlenecks. just like everybody else, and sometimes, like sometimes even more, but if you understand that, like, nothing is as crazy as our mind tries to trick us into thinking it is, you
Right.
know?
No, I agree with you, and I'll leave
Yeah.
you with this last one thing. There's an African proverb that I really like, and it says, "When there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that does us no harm." Right? And I do believe that. Like you said, your mind can be very powerful, and or it can either help you or it can take you down. Right? So I love that. Any last minute things you want to say before I let you go?
No, man, I think this has been great.
Yeah, man, I love that. Well, thank you again, Mitch. And again, for you guys, that's Mitch Sapoff. Definitely do me a favor. Make sure you guys follow him on Instagram. And also make sure that you guys share this message, share this post, because I know that definitely somebody needs to hear this message and can use his assistance. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Work On Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.